The night God calls your name, there are moments in life that feel ordinary, until suddenly they're not. Moments where the air becomes heavier, your spirit becomes more alert, and something inside whispers, "Pay attention, heaven is speaking." It was on a night like this, years ago, that I learned how God sometimes chooses the quietest hour to deliver the loudest message. I was sitting alone under a dim light, exhausted, confused, and unsure of my purpose. And then, out of nowhere, I felt a pull, a divine urgency, to open my heart, my notebook, and my future before the clock struck a certain time. And today, chosen one, that same divine pull is reaching for you. There is something God wants you to open before 11 p.m. A door, a chapter, a gift, an inner vault, a courage that has waited too long. This is not coincidence. This is not routine. This is a divine appointment marked with your name, your destiny, your story. God has seen your battles, your silent tears, your resilience, your hidden wounds, your persistence when nobody knew the weight you carried. And tonight, heaven is leaning close, urging you, open now. Don't delay. Your moment has come. You are not reading these words by accident. You are here because you are chosen, set apart, and called for a specific shift that must begin before 11 p.m. Let us now enter the 7-volume journey God has written on the scroll of your soul. These are not points. These are stages of transformation, chapters of a destiny awakening, movements of a spirit rising. Let them speak to you, reshape you, and prepare you for the door God is unlocking tonight. You were marked from the beginning, long before you ever heard the whisper of purpose, before you felt the stirring of a dream deep inside your soul. God had already laid his hand on you. He wrote your name, not in ink that fades, but in the eternal scroll of destiny. You might have grown up thinking you were ordinary, just one among many. But the truth, dear friend, is that from the moment you took your first breath, heaven, in its infinite wisdom, marked you as chosen. And that marking meant more than lineage, talent, or promise. It meant a covenant, a sacred inheritance that no force on earth could erase. Think back to the earliest days you can remember. A child chasing sunlight across the yard, a teenager staring at the stars, wondering who you were meant to become. In those innocent moments, God's voice spoke silently into your spirit. Maybe you didn't understand it then. Maybe the world told you it was fantasy, foolishness, or a dream too big for someone like you. But that voice never faded. That signature never blurred. In the quiet corners of your heart, you sensed that you were destined for more. Even when the world tried to define you by your circumstances, your past, your mistakes, heaven saw you by a different name. A name of purpose, a name of destiny. You were born marked, chosen, reserved, not because of what you would achieve, but because of who you were created to be. Your trials, your brokenness, your doubts, none could remove that mark. Like gold refined in fire, your identity remained intact. When you walked through dark valleys, when fear whispered lies into your ears, that sacred seal glowed quietly beneath the ashes of pain, reminding you you belong to me. Let me tell you about a season of my own life, a season before discovery, before miracles, before clarity. I was young, I was searching, I was broken. The world saw an uncertainty, but God saw potential. I remember nights when I cried out, asking, why me? What treasure do I have to offer? I had no diploma, no platform, no certainty. What credentials could a wandering soul provide? Yet deep within, there was a trembling assurance that I had been reserved for something great. Not by human standards, but by divine decree. I had been marked from the beginning. And as I walked, unseen by most, God was writing chapters in my heart. He was shaping character, molding faith, developing endurance. The lullabies of childhood hardship, the echo of silent prayers, the longing for meaning, all were part of his artistry. The scars I tried to hide became signposts of grace. My stumbling footsteps were preparing me for confident strides. My nights of confusion were cultivating a clarity that only emerges from waiting on God. You too have endured seasons of waiting. You have known what it is to feel invisible, unqualified, inadequate. Yet you are here now, because God had already given you a name. He had already called you by identity. He had sealed you with a destiny that does not depend on your performance, but on His promise. This is why you cannot look at yourself with ordinary eyes, because your origin, your design, your very beginning was touched by the sacred. The very breath that filled your lungs was breathed into you by the God who declares, "You are mine." The same God who numbered the stars, who flung galaxies into space, took time to set you apart. He chose your family, your birthplace, your moments of joy and pain, all to tell you, you were marked even before you knew the word for it. And now, even if seasons have tried to erase your confidence, even if disappointments have tried to rewrite your story, the original mark remains. It is engraved not by ink, but by divine blood. It is written not in sand, but on the rock of eternity. The world may mislabel you, circumstances may limit you, people may doubt you, but the seal on your soul stands untouched. Hear this, the calling inside you is not a suggestion, it is a heritage. The stirrings of purpose, the longing for significance, the hunger you feel for more. They're not illusions. They're the echo of the divine signature placed on your life before time began. So rise up in your mind tonight. Refuse the lies that say you are ordinary. Refuse the condemnation that whispers you're unworthy. Look into the mirror of your soul and see the mark, faint to worldly eyes, but radiant in heaven's gaze. Know that you are reserved, chosen, set apart. Know that God's plan for you began long before you ever took your first step toward it. Because you were marked from the beginning, and everything in you is now stirring for the moment to arise. The season of pressure was never meant to break you. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey where the weight feels unbearable. A moment where life seems determined to squeeze the breath out of your lungs, silence your voice, and convince you that you are not who God says you are. Pressure is not gentle. Pressure does not ask permission. Pressure does not knock politely at the door of your life. It invades, it confronts, it exposes. And yet, in the divine orchestration of God, pressure has always been a tool of transformation, not a weapon of destruction. You did not walk through pressure because God wanted you to break. You walked through it because God was shaping you into someone who cannot be broken. Think back to your hardest seasons. The nights when your heart felt too heavy to carry, when your spirit felt stretched beyond its limit. Times when people misunderstood you, betrayed you, underestimated you, dismissed you. Seasons where you cried silently because you were tired of being strong. Nights where you asked, "Why is this happening to me?" In those moments, pressure felt like punishment, but in heaven's plan, it was preparation. The oil inside you, your anointing, your calling, your spiritual authority, does not flow without pressure. Just like olives must be crushed to release their oil, your destiny required a pressing that would reveal who you truly are. Because without pressure, potential remains hidden. Without pressure, strength remains untested. Without pressure, faith remains theoretical. God allowed those situations not to destroy you, but to mature you, elevate you, and refine you. There were people you thought you needed, but the pressure exposed who truly stood with you and who was merely standing near you. There were dreams you thought were the ultimate goal, but pressure redirected your footsteps towards something far greater. There were habits, mindsets, and fears that had clung to you for too long, and only pressure had the power to shake them loose. Pressure has a way of revealing what you carry. Diamonds are born in the deepest, darkest places where unbearable pressure meets unshakable resilience. The same is true for you. Everything you survived, the heartbreaks, the disappointments, the betrayals, the delays, they were not random storms. They were the divine process sculpting the diamond inside your spirit. You were never the fragile thing life tried to convince you that you were. You were resilient, chosen, preserved. You were being shaped for impact, for influence, for spiritual maturity. There were moments you thought you had lost everything. But looking back now, you can see that pressure didn't break you. It revealed you. It revealed your endurance, your faith, your discipline, your identity. It taught you how to pray deeper. It forced you to grow stronger. It made you humble, compassionate, wise, discerning. Pressure awakened sensitivity to God's voice. It taught you to trust Him when you could not see the next step. It taught you to keep walking even when the path was covered in fog. Pressure made you dangerous to the enemy because it produced a version of you that hell could not intimidate. This is why the enemy fought you harder during your pressure seasons than at any other moment. He saw what you couldn't see. He recognized the power that was being formed inside of you. He understood that once you came out of that season, you would rise with authority, clarity, vision, and spiritual sharpness. He knew that once you survived what was meant to break you, nothing would ever be able to stop you again. So he tried to overwhelm you, hoping that you would quit before you discovered how strong you really were. But you didn't quit. You didn't bow. You didn't collapse. Even when you felt like you were sinking, grace lifted you. Even when you had no strength left, God carried you. And here you are now, not broken but built, not crushed but shaped, not defeated but defined. The pressure that was supposed to shatter you instead crowned you. It placed something in your spirit that cannot be stolen: resilience. You now carry a calmness, a wisdom, and a depth that only the pressed and the purified could ever understand. You speak differently. You think differently. You move differently. You discern differently. Pressure has elevated your spiritual daya. So understand this: what felt like the worst season of your life was actually the birthplace of your becoming. Pressure didn't reduce you. It refined you. Pressure didn't take your purpose. It amplified it. Pressure didn't steal your identity. It clarified it. You walked through something many never would have survived, and you emerged as living proof that God does not waste a single moment of suffering. You didn't just endure pressure, you mastered it. And now, with every step you take, the world will see what heaven already knew. You were never meant to break. You were meant to rise. God hid you to prepare you. There is a sacred mystery in the way God works with those He has chosen. The world celebrates visibility. People crave recognition, applause, validation. But God, in His divine wisdom, often chooses to do His greatest work in the hidden places. He hides His chosen ones, not to punish them, but to prepare them. Not to silence them, but to sharpen them. Not to withhold blessing, but to build the character needed to sustain blessing. And if you look back over your life, you will see that some of your most transformative seasons were the seasons where no one was watching, no one was clapping, and no one even knew your name. You felt invisible, overlooked, forgotten. You wondered if God had forgotten you. There were dreams inside you screaming to be born, passions burning in your chest, visions you wanted to share, but heaven kept you tucked away in the quiet. You saw others getting opportunities, stepping into their platforms, walking through doors you believed were meant for you too. You cried silently, asking, "Why am I still hidden? Why am I still waiting?" But what you didn't know then is what you can see more clearly now. Hidden seasons are holy seasons. When God hides you, He is not delaying you. He is developing you. Just like a seed must be buried before it can break open, you too had to be placed in the soil of obscurity. A seed buried in the ground may feel surrounded by darkness, but it is never abandoned. Beneath the soil, it is swelling, strengthening, cracking open, preparing to emerge. And that is exactly what God was doing in your hidden years. He was breaking open your potential, cultivating your gifts, strengthening your roots so that when you finally rose, you would rise unshakable. Hidden seasons protect you. God knew that premature visibility would have destroyed you. He knew that certain environments would have suffocated your calling. He knew that if he had exposed you too early, the wrong voices would have influenced your identity. The wrong people would have taken advantage of your heart, and the wrong opportunities would have derailed your purpose. So he hid you, not because you were unworthy, but because you were not yet ready for the magnitude of what he was building inside you. Remember the moments when you felt disconnected from everyone, times when relationships ended suddenly, friendships drifted, people walked away without explanation. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God was isolating you not for loneliness, but for intimacy. He wanted your ear without distortion, your heart without competition, your attention without distraction. He was training you to hear his voice above every other voice. He was teaching you the art of solitude, the power of stillness, the clarity that comes from silence. In the hidden place, God teaches you who you are and who you are not. He strips away false identities, people-pleasing tendencies, insecurity, and the need for human approval. He builds in you a confidence rooted not in applause, but in identity, a strength born not from crowds, but from communion, a resilience forged not in celebration, but in consecration. The version of you that is rising now is not the version that entered the hidden season. That version was fragile. This version is fortified. God hid you to mature your gift. There are dimensions of calling that can only be developed away from the public eye. David killed lions and bears in the wilderness long before he ever faced Goliath. Moses learned humility in the desert before he ever confronted Pharaoh. Joseph learned leadership in a prison before he ever sat on a throne. Their hidden years were not wasted years. They were foundational years. And so were yours. Every quiet morning of prayer, every tearful night of confusion, every moment you thought nothing was happening, everything was happening. You were growing, stretching, expanding, transforming. God also hid you to protect you from the spiritual battles you were not yet equipped to fight. Exposure invites attack. Visibility triggers warfare. God refused to let you step into a realm that your spirit wasn't trained to handle yet. So he sheltered you in secrecy until your armor was complete. And now, after all that shaping, refining, strengthening, and equipping, you are emerging with a power, wisdom, an authority that can only come from the hidden place. And here is the beautiful truth. Those who are hidden by God eventually rise in the fullness of his timing, not rushed, not fragile, not insecure, but ready. Ready to carry destiny without collapsing. Ready to step into purpose without apology. Ready to walk into rooms with quiet confidence. Ready to stand on platforms with humility and fire. Ready to receive blessings without being consumed by them. Ready to be seen because you are no longer defined by being seen. You were never forgotten. You were never overlooked. You were being prepared. God hid you because what he placed inside you is too valuable to expose prematurely. And now, the same God who hid you is preparing to reveal you, not as who you once were, but as who he formed you to become in the hidden place. The shift begins when you say yes. There comes a defining moment in every chosen life where heaven waits, not to see your talent, not to measure your strength, not to observe your qualifications, but simply to hear your yes. A yes that is whispered through trembling lips. A yes that is spoken even when you don't fully understand the journey ahead. A yes that comes from a place deeper than logic, deeper than comfort, deeper than fear. Saying yes to God is not a casual decision. It is the moment the shift begins. It is the moment your life stops being something you manage and becomes something God moves through with power, clarity, and supernatural alignment. Many people imagine that destiny begins when opportunities open, when resources arrive, or when life becomes easier. But the truth is far simpler and far more profound. Destiny begins at yes. Before there is manifestation, there is surrender. Before there is elevation, there is obedience. Before there is visibility, there is willingness. God does not ask you to understand the full picture. He only asks you to take the first step in the dark, trusting that He has already prepared the path beneath your feet. Think back to the times when you felt the nudge, the pull, the divine whisper telling you to move, to step out, to change direction, to release something, to start something, or simply to trust. You felt that inner stirring, that unmistakable knowing, and yet fear held you back. It wasn't because you lacked faith, it was because you were human. Saying yes can be terrifying, it demands courage, it requires sacrifice. It calls you to let go of what is familiar to reach for what is promised. But every time you said yes, even if your voice shook, something shifted in the atmosphere around you. New doors cracked open. Old chains started falling off. Clarity replaced confusion. Strength replaced hesitation. And the path ahead, once foggy, began to reveal small glimmers of light. God does not force destiny upon you. He invites you into it. He waits for your yes because that yes signifies trust. Trust that even if you don't see the full staircase, He will guide your step. Trust that even if the road is uncertain, He is certain. Trust that even if His timing feels unfamiliar, it is still perfect. And sometimes your yes has to come before you feel ready. Sometimes your yes must be bigger than your fear. Sometimes your yes must come from the quiet, trembling awareness that if you don't move now, you risk remaining in a chapter God has already outgrown for you. Your yes is powerful because it unlocks what hesitation keeps locked. When you say yes to God, you align yourself with the supernatural. You shift from self-effort to divine empowerment. You step out of the limited and into the limitless. You give heaven permission to move in ways that defy logic, expectation, and earthly limitation. The moment you surrender your will, God begins to release His, and His will is always better, always greater, always richer than anything you could have built on your own. But saying yes is not just a moment. It is a lifestyle. It is choosing obedience even when you are tired, choosing faith even when the outcome is uncertain, choosing growth even when staying the same feels safer. Saying yes to God often means saying no to your fears, your past, your excuses, your self-doubt. It means stepping out of patterns that no longer serve you. It means embracing a level of responsibility, discipline, and spiritual maturity that elevates your life to where God is calling you. Think of the heroes of faith who came before you. Abraham said yes before he knew the destination. Moses said yes before he knew how to speak. Esther said yes before she knew how the king would respond. David said yes before he knew how to defeat Goliath. Their yes was the doorway to their calling. And the same God who moved through them is moving through you. Your yes carries generational weight. It breaks cycles. It shifts atmospheres. It reshapes the trajectory of not only your life, but the lives connected to your assignment. And here's the beautiful truth. Your yes doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be confident. It simply has to be sincere. Heaven hears the softest yes just as loudly as the boldest one. What matters is the posture of your heart. Because the moment you say yes, God begins to reveal the next step, the right connections, the needed resources, the hidden opportunities, the divine timing. Your yes activates alignment. And now, in this season, God is calling you again, not to overwhelm you, but to elevate you, not to burden you, but to bless you, not to test you, but to transition you. You can feel it in your spirit. The shift is here. The atmosphere around your life is changing. Doors that were once locked are beginning to respond. Strength you thought you lost is returning. And destiny is standing at the threshold, waiting for your agreement. Everything changes when you say yes. The shift begins when you say yes. Your next season begins with a yes. Because heaven has already said yes to you. Now it is your turn to say yes to what heaven is calling you into.